You've very often spoken about the need for collaboration between national governments, industry, and, of course, academia as well to fill the shortage of STEM subject skills. How do you feel that this can be achieved, and in particular in terms of international initiatives?
In developing countries that are looking to establish both primary, secondary, and tertiary industry, grand projects that perhaps an oil and gas industry can be part of that primary industry, but then quickly one has to say, then with those raw materials, how can they be further processed? How can they have an extended manufacturing chain? They act as a catalyst for social and economic development, where the initial project is one not only that creates that first, block in the wall, but at the same time it creates the talent pool, the structure of education, the structure of apprenticeships, the structure of small and medium-sized enterprises that have had to grow up to support that first industry, because that's the necessary fabric that needs to be in place. And of course, beneath that, then one is looking to government saying, well, what is government's role in both on education? What is government's role in taxation, in subsidies, in aid that encourages those SME companies to come to fruition? And even on one hand, which is what are the policies that government would have, at least in the early years, to encourage foreign investment, but also to encourage talent from overseas to come and work? That's a question which is often played out today, which is when is the optimum time to start demanning a particular industry with an awful lot of expatriated staff and actually seeing the local talent come in. The last time, or the last major project that I was involved in, certainly that particular government wanted to see that change happen in 10 years. Now, bearing in mind, that is an incredibly rapid pace of development. In countries that are developed, it's a curious situation, really. It's obvious for the developing nations what they view as the key talent that is needed. And many of children have aspirations to walk into engineering because they see that all around them. They see the activity. It's a discussion which happens very easily at home about, what are you going to do? What work? In the developing nations, perhaps we have that mix of service industry in it, perhaps because so much of heavy industry has actually moved away. We don't quite have the connectivity with engineering and industry that perhaps we did. Even though we all walk around with cell phones and wonderful pieces of technology, it's somewhat a couple of degrees of separation. And there is a world of choice. There's a world of choice in terms of careers. And as such, there isn't the same societal view of engineering's contribution to society as a whole because it's seen as it's there in the background, something that we can always rely upon. And secondly, because it's also tough. The subjects in themselves are not easy. And so either people are, voting with what do I like and what would I like to do, or they're voting with what are the subjects I feel more comfortable with, and what are the conversations at home, which are pretty fundamental. Those things are not quite creating the level of attraction and pull. And I think it's cognizant upon industry to create opportunities for both the educators to come and have a feel of what modern commerce and modern industry is, because it's not all shipyards and working at the mill. These are things which belong to another era. It's important that large companies are active in apprenticeship programs. It's important that they are active in graduate development programs. And it's also important that together, alone and with others, make an impact at schools to enhance the curricula, either by providing project opportunities or providing different ways of which the subjects can be brought to life, so that they understand, the children understand the wealth that science and technology represents from a what it can do point of view, but then, just as importantly, what it means from a career opportunity point of view.
But there are inherent challenges from the corporate perspective of bringing those very different worlds together. How does Shell as a world-leading company which draws on people from all around the world, manage to get the optimal performance out of all its team members, given that they're coming from very different kinds of backgrounds?
We had a major project in Qatar a number of years ago. At its peak, there were over 50,000 people working there. I think in excess of 50 nationalities. If I could have taken you to the camp, you wouldn't have seen a camp. You would have seen a model village, and you would have seen a village where every facet of that individual was being taken care of. From preparation for the work that they were engaged in, to play, to health, to education, to connectivity, so that they could be in touch with their families who were back home. And you could see the programs of work to create capability. And these were things that were offered but not forced. And the level of take-up of all those folks, speaking so many languages, but speaking in one common language, which was English, by and large, I should say, it created an incredible esprit de corps. And as much as what was built is something of legacy, those 50,000 people, one could argue, are the bigger legacy for what that particular project has given them in terms of capability, talent, a network of relationships, the wealth that, of course, they generated and took home with them. It's a tremendous thing. Now, we work actively to create such environments that bring people together in such a way, because it is that singular team spirit, that singular focus on the prize that allow these wonders to be created. And it is as much a part of social enterprise and social engineering as it is about the hardware, because this is about making large organizations work. And that always comes down to people within it.
Shell, like a number of other multinational companies, stands very firmly behind the Queen Elizabeth Prize for Engineering. Why is Shell such a visible champion of this prize?
Well, I think it's necessary that we find a way to express, in our own way, an equivalent to the Nobel Prize or the Oscars, to recognize outstanding achievement in the engineering space. Often, and I've had the conversation with broadcasters in the past when we speak about the projects and so forth, they say, why don't you say much more of it? You know, and they always are very quick to say, you guys seem very, very humble. You know? Why don't you make more of a song and dance about it? And it's a curious thing. Perhaps it's because we don't find that these are stories that will travel well. Perhaps we worry about how they'll be received. Perhaps we're just a little bit embarrassed of putting ourselves in the spotlight. I have not really come to any conclusions as to what has kept us back from, being proud of what these wonderful developments are and for the benefits that they bring to broader society. Long story short, let's dismiss all those potential drawbacks and say, within the Queen Elizabeth Prize, we have the ideal opportunity to create a beacon to allow appropriate recognition for those individuals that have made such contributions, and at the same time, create a moment in time when society can see those things and that we can celebrate them together, and that people can walk away with both an appreciation and a genuine curiosity for what technology and engineering can actually do.
Erik Bonino, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.